everyone, we are the Nkunas. Thank you so much to Malamulele Interyouth for having us today. We've been asked to tackle a very interesting and very popular topic today, which is relationships and dating. So how we've decided to approach this is just to break it up into 3 questions or just topics that will help us navigate this topic. The first one is, when is the right time to start dating? And then we'll move on to, what do you look for in a partner? And then also lastly, just look at some of the pitfalls that you would encounter as a young person during this phase. So I'll hand over to Makungu, who will take on the first question.
Yeah. I'm not used to being called Makungu. So I think, so in terms of the first question, really, I think there is a go-to verse, and I thought it's actually good if we can start there. It's a verse by Songs of Solomon, where he says in 8 verse 4, he actually writes and says, "O daughters of Zion, make an oath or make a vow that you will not awaken love until she is ready." Actually, I had not picked that up. I picked it up as we're preparing for this, where it says, "until love is ready." So I think for me, that gives us sort of a good basis or a foundation to look at it, to say, when is the right time to start dating or to approach relationships. First of all, I don't believe there is a particular set time in terms of saying now when one is 23 or one is 30, and God forbid when one is 40, is it the right time to then start dating or to start approaching relationships? But I think, referring to the scripture that we've just quoted, it's very important, I really think, to look at self, because here it says before love is ready. In other words, so you look at self to say, is it time, or is my love ready to be awakened? So there's 2 things that we should pick up there, or there's a few things we should pick up there. One, there is a wrong time. In other words, there is a time when it's not yet time, based on the scripture. So there is a time where love cannot yet be ready to be awakened. And the reason it says actually it's awakening, because it means all of us have love sleeping in us. I believe it's actually from a young age, when we learn to love, or we learn to prefer certain people, be it friends, certain relationships, and at that time is the time when there is a particular love that is being unleashed, but there's still a certain love that is still sleeping. And as we grow and we mature in life, it means that we ourselves start having the ability to actually awaken this sleeping life. Look at it like this. When someone is supposed to have sufficient sleep and they don't have sufficient sleep, it could be that this person can have a very ineffective day, generally. If someone does not sleep enough, actually doctors will tell you that it's actually unhealthy, and it actually limits your life. It makes you not be able to achieve the things that you can be able to achieve in a day. So even love, looking at this writing, is that when we awaken love before time, it becomes unhealthy. It becomes unhealthy for us because we begin to conduct relationships in an inefficient way. We conduct relationships in a way that they don't return results of a relationship back to us. So it's very important, and I wanted to just pass there and say it's very important to check the dangers of awakening love before time. Now, When is the right time? I believe the right time is a time when one finds themselves to be in a safe spiritual space, in a safe social space, in a safe financial space. What do I mean by that? I mean, one should love when it's awakened. It should not disturb our spiritual walk. I think it's very important.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, I thought you were going to add something.
I totally
It's
agree.
very important that in our journey walk, our spiritual walk with God, when love is awakened, love should not become a threat, or the relationship that is born out of that awakened love should not compete with our relationship with God. And of course, you would know what are the things that you're still dealing with. I mean, one would say, do I have sufficient prayer time, me being me, without having to deal with a second person? Number two, socially. I mean, we are social human beings. We live within families. We part of our social life involves our education, jobs, and all of that. And one would wonder, am I in the right social space to take on a relationship while I'm still pursuing education? While I am still, maybe I just started a new job, or it could be that. So one would need to assess all of that social aspects of your life to say, am I ready to take on a relationship? Because there's a lot of social relationships that one tends to. And then financially, of course, one would need to also look at I think as from an African perspective, a relationship, when it matures, is a relationship that can lead to marriage, and marriage that is cemented by lobola, or initiated by lobola. So one would need to look and say, am I ready to pay lobola? And on a different day, we'll talk about all of that, to say, but if I don't work and all of that, does it mean I should never be in a relationship? No, it doesn't mean that. But one would need to make a financial assessment, because relationships are expensive. Relationships are very expensive. And then also, it's very important in any relationship must have the prospect of marriage. Any relationship that one enters into. So there, I think it eliminates a lot of other questions. So relationships should, and I'm not saying all relationships should lead to marriage, because I think that would be irresponsible to advise that. But all relationships should live in the hope of marriage. If they don't get into marriage, let it be by a good assessment that I went into a relationship, it did not work out, and I therefore move out of that relationship without getting into the space of marriage. But one should not enter into a relationship and leave it to chance and say, look, if it happens that we get married, we get married. But no, when one enters a relationship, because that gives you a good platform to assess the success or lack thereof of the relationship. If a relationship is perpetually shifting away from the prospect of marriage, that should tell you that no, maybe it's not a good relationship. And then maybe it will touch on to the issues around compatibility, who is the right person and all of that. But if I enter into a relationship and I see no prospect of marriage, one wonders, what is the base and the basis of that relationship? What is the hope of that relationship? What is the ultimate goal of that relationship? So one would answer the question of saying, when is it the right time? Is when I have mentioned the three things, and I socially ready, spiritually ready, socially ready, and financially ready, in terms of the environment I have for myself to enter into a relationship.
Yeah, and just to add on to that regarding timing, I think it's also very important, as young people, not to be pressured into having relationships.
Yes.
Because our peers are in relationships.
Yes.
Because we feel that everybody now in our age group is getting married,
Yeah.
or so that should
You
also...
didn't have to deal with that. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't have to deal with that. But yeah, it's very important to make sure that you're not dating from a point of pressure because you want to be socially accepted. That's also one thing that I think is important.
Exactly. I mean, the Bible says, whatever your hands find to do, do with all your might. It's very difficult to apply your full might if you entered into a relationship by pressure. And that's when you start getting into a relationship not wholeheartedly. And you know, I totally subscribe or agree with that whatever your hands find to do with all your might. In other words, if you're going to invest yourself into a relationship, it should be a relationship that you're going to apply yourself with all your might.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yes. So now I think we need to move on to compatibility. Yes. What do we look for in a partner? I think it's very important. You know, what came to mind was first is you need to know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You can't really search for something that you don't know. I know it's usually said that it's the man that must find and look, but as a woman as well, I feel that you need to have a few things. You need to know exactly what you're looking for, and these are things that you probably pick up from relationships that you've observed in your family, in your community, where I like this kind of person. So first thing I thought that, well, I think you touched on it as well, which I thought is very important, is that we need to search for equal yoke. We must be equally yoked.
Yes.
That's very important. As a child of God, I don't think you should be entering into a relationship with somebody who is not saved.
Yes.
Because that, like you said, it will hinder your walk with God. Yes. And I know sometimes as young people, we feel that, no, but he will change or she will change or I can change them, but you can't. It is only God that can do that. So it's very important that one, you are equally yoked with whoever you enter.
Because you are not going to run a crusade. You are getting into a relationship. So you're not an evangelist.
Very true. All right. And and then the second thing that I thought is very important is that you want friendship. And I think a lot of times I don't know how we categorize dating, or we somehow put it above friendship. It's like we forget that you need to be friends. Friendship is very important, and I think it should be the foundation of your relationship, because it's what sustains the relationship. If you can laugh and have fun and joke around with your partner, that will sustain you even on days when you're not feeling very loving and very happy with that person, but your friendship will sustain you. So I think that's very important. And as I was preparing this, I just thought the whole thing of knowing what you want in a partner, a lot of times we don't know because we don't really put down what we want. And I think it's very important as young people to put down what you want. Yes, the list will change as you grow. Like you said, not every relationship will work out. So there's certain things that you're going to keep erasing or saying, okay, the priorities will change. Maybe as a young person, when you're still very young, all you're thinking is, he must be like this, like this, like this. And then as you grow older and as you mature in life as well, your priorities will change. And so I think it's very important. And even the Bible, in the book of Habakkuk, where it says, put down your vision. That's very important. Put down your vision. Know what you want. I think I had a list. It was very long, but I think by the time we got married or we started dating, I probably had 5 characteristics that I wanted. So no, but I think that helps you navigate, because there's so many false people out there. So it centers you. I think that's very important. It centers you, because there's so many fluffy things in relationships. You would think that you want a partner like this because you're seeing it outside, but when you enter into a relationship and as you grow and as you also seek God to reveal what are the important things that you should be looking for. So that's why it's very difficult to say this is the 10 things you need to look for in a partner, because it is different for each individual. But I think the basis is obviously you need to be equally yoked, friendship, and really seeking God and writing down your desires or your vision of your perfect partner. Not that we know we're not perfect, but of what you would like in a partner. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think it's, I mean, you're right, because I mean, when you mention the fluffy things, and I think there's a lot of fluff that has been elevated in the quest to get partners, especially with what we get fed, the shows we watch, the music we listen to, the things we read, Instagram and all of that. So we begin to create compatible partners based on a very outward based outlook, and that positions us to go into relationships which are not rooted relationships, or we choose partners from we choose like we're choosing a commodity, or something material that we buy. It's very important. Of course, looks will attract you to a person and all of that, but if we're gonna base relationships on outward compatibility, it means that we will constantly find competition for our current partners, or the partners that we have, because a lot of what is outward there will always be something that is visibly better. So it's very important that when you talk compatibility, you remove the fluff. It's bonuses. If you've got a beautiful wife, it's a bonus. If you've got someone that is smart, it's intelligent, all those kind of things that small stomach, curves, all that, it becomes bonuses. But because the longevity of life does not give us, unfortunately, that comfort of knowing for sure that the looks of someone will not change, and all of that. So that's why rooting compatibility in something deeper and something more tangible is very important.
No, I agree. So I think it's also, I mean, we've spoken about the timing and compatibility, but I think it's also very important that we maybe touch on the pitfalls, because there are going to be pitfalls in relationships. So I think you should take the first shot.
Okay, so I mean, I think maybe it's linked to what we mentioned about pressure. One, I always advise people, it's very important to not pressure yourself. I mean, people will always say, yeah, it's because you're already married. You don't understand how tough it is. I mean, it's easier to live with the disappointment of not getting a partner than the disappointment of being in a wrong relationship, and God forbid, a wrong marriage. So don't pressure yourself. That's one pitfall that I think people should learn to be happy with self. Try as much as you can. I mean, I know it's not easy. It's not nice to grow older and not have a companionship, or not have a partner and not be married. But try as much as you can to be happy with self and serve God, and I mean, enhance your spiritual walk with God. When you are actually be comforted by Paul, who says, you can work for the Lord with passion. But I'm just trying to emphasize the point that don't go into wrong relationships simply because time is no longer on your side. It's dangerous. It can send you into depression. It can set your life back.
And also something that I thought of is just, having, when you awaken the young lion, when it's not time, you end up experiencing things that you probably would not have experienced had you waited. We end up experiencing really terrible heartbreaks and emotional abuse and all those things. And not to say you won't experience them at a later stage, but it's just to say that timing limited. You can limit a lot of things by doing it at the right time and waiting and taking care of self first. And I think that's what I thought as well. The other one is, I think temptation. That's another pitfall. When it's I think you should take this one. Temptation.
Relationships that get exposed to a lot of um, sexual immorality, they run a very high risk of failure because you've tested your limits very early on, or rather you've stretched your limits very early on within that relationship. So that relationship has got a high propensity to failure than if you maintain purity within a relationship. So it becomes very important for you. One would think they are saving the relationship by actually succumbing into sex. In actual fact, you're exposing the relationship to much more danger.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So I think we've really touched on all our topics. I don't know if there's one thing.
Yes, one or two. No, the other one that I wanted to just mention is that there's a big pitfall of people not wanting to get out of bad relationships. It's very important. Don't stay in a relationship because the pastor knows, the family knows, everyone. No, if a relationship by your assessment is not a good relationship, it's best to get out of it, especially before marriage. It's best to get out of it. I think I always tell people the discussion between getting out of a marital relationship and a dating relationship are very different. And your propensity or your allowance for nonsense in a dating relationship should be extremely low. Extremely low, because the level of commitment is limited. And if someone with limited commitment in a dating relationship can show you their bad side, you can imagine what's going to happen in a marital setup. Oh yes, because it doesn't get better. You know, it would likely get worse if someone good gets better and bad gets worse.
Yeah. Second point, or you done?
Yeah, no, I think we can leave it there.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. We hope that we've empowered you and we've really shared from the wisdom that we have, and that we will help. This helps you in your dating and relationships that you will encounter at the right time with the right people, and avoiding all these pitfalls.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter how good your partner looks, how saved they look. If God says no, get out. If God does not approve, get out. If you don't have the peace of God to enter into that relationship, if that relationship takes away the peace of God, it's very important before entering to get the peace, during to get the peace, and if you do get out, to also have the peace if you get out. If it succeeds, to have the peace in the success of that relationship.
Yes. Thank you so much.